Hi guys. So today we did notes over transformations and we touched on the reflection part. So what we're going to do is we're going to work two examples. Example 1 says triangle XYZ is reflected across the x-axis. Write the rule and the coordinates for triangle x prime, y prime, z prime. So if you think about what a reflection is, or when you think about looking in a mirror, when we raise our right hand while we're looking in that mirror, the left hand is what it looks like is being raised in the mirror because your reflection is the opposite. So when we're thinking about our rules for reflections, remember I told you that we're always going to start with X, Y, and then my arrow. So to get my new coordinates or my prime coordinates, if we are reflecting across the x-axis, then we want to do the opposite coordinate. So we're going to do the opposite of our y coordinate. So it's the x-axis, so the opposite of that would be the y. And this is a positive y, and the opposite of positive would be a negative y. So my rule will look like x, comma, negative y. So this is our rule for a reflection across the x-axis. Now, to get that, I'm going to write down my coordinates for my original triangle. So x is at -4, -3. Y is at -1, -2. And z is at 2, -4. So like I said, we want to do the opposite coordinate. So this is our x-axis. It says the y coordinate is what's going to change. So I'm going to circle those y coordinates there. So to get my new coordinates or my prime, I'm going to write down my x. So -4 stays the same. And then the opposite of -3 is a +3. So my coordinate for my x prime is -4, +3. 1, 2, 3. That's x prime. So for my y prime, I keep my x, so I keep my -1, and I do the opposite of -2, which would be a +2. So y prime is going to be at -1, +2. Y, and I put that apostrophe for my prime so that I know that's my new coordinate. For z prime, we're going to keep our 2, and we're going to do the opposite of -4, which is a +4. So z prime is going to be at +2, +4. And this is my triangle. And I can tell that here's my x-axis, and that triangle was reflected. It was flipped over my x-axis. All right, so I do need you to remember that rule. It is not on your formula chart. So for a reflection across the x-axis, you start with your xy and you turn into x, comma, -y, meaning we're doing the opposite of the y value, right? So now we're going to work on when we are doing a reflection across the y-axis. Okay, so when we do a reflection across the y-axis, I want my shape to flip over this line right there. So this example, triangle ABC is reflected across the y-axis. Write the rule and the coordinates for triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. So again, my rule is going to start x, comma, y, and I draw my arrow. Now, still reflection, so we want the opposite. So if this is our y-axis, we are going to change our x coordinate. We're going to do the opposite of our x coordinate. All right. So I'm going to take my points. So A is at 1, 4. B is at 2, 1. And C is at 5, 2. So like I said, to get that reflection, to get it to flip, we are going to have to do the opposite of our x coordinates for this one. So I'm going to circle my x coordinates for each of my coordinates, each point. So A prime, the opposite of positive 1 is going to be negative 1. Keep my y, so the 4 stays the same. For B prime, the opposite of positive 2 is going to be negative 2. Keep my y value, so the y stays the same. And then for C prime, I'm doing the opposite of positive 5, which will be negative 5, and the 2 will stay the same. So when I go to graph this, I'm going to go negative 1, positive 4. That's A prime. Don't forget the apostrophe. B is going to be 2, 1. And C is going to be negative 5, 2. So we can see that our triangle flipped over that y-axis. So your rule for a reflection across the y-axis is xy with my arrow, negative x, negative y. The main thing I need you to realize is that we are changing, and by changing, I mean doing the opposite coordinate from the axis. So for first example, we reflected over the x-axis, so we did the opposite of our y coordinate. And for our y-axis, the opposite coordinate would be our x, and we went from a positive to a negative, which is the opposite operation. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in class. Thank you.